Hi, in this video we're going to further explore the difference of two squares. Just to remind ourselves what the difference of two squares is, it's when we have a subtraction, a difference of two squared things. So a squared and b squared are both squared things, and that's why it's called the difference of two squares, because it's a difference of two squares. And the way we factorise a difference of two squares is to have two brackets, one with a plus in the middle, the other with a minus in the middle, either way around, doesn't matter. Then you do the square root of the first term. So the square root of a squared is just a, because a multiplied by itself will give you a squared. So you make that the first term of each bracket, and then you square root the second term, you square root the b squared, which is just b, and you make that the second term of each bracket. Now, what makes these slightly harder is that actually initially these are not squared things, because although the x squared is something squared, the 2 is not a square number, is it? Now, what you should always try and do first when factorising any expression, whatever technique you use, is always check whether there's a common factor first. So is there any common factor to 2x squared and 18y squared? Well, if I just copy this out first, down here, we've got 2x squared minus 18y squared. Is there a common factor between here and here? Well, the variables don't have anything in common, because this is x squared, this is y squared, so they don't have like a letter variable in common. But look, these both have a common factor of 2. They're both even. So what we do is we factorise out the 2 and then open a bracket like this, a single bracket, and then we think, well, 2 multiplied by what would give you this 2x squared? Well, it's x squared, isn't it? So it's 2 times x squared would give you this 2x squared in expansion. And then secondly, 2 times what would give you this minus 18y squared? Well, 2 times what is minus 18? Well, it's negative 9. 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. And then you've got obviously that y squared there like that. Now, at this stage, what we have inside this bracket is a difference of two squares. Look, it's a difference, and both the x squared and the 9y squared are both squared things, because x squared is a squared thing, and then the 9 is a square number, the y squared is something squared, so they're both squared things, and now we can do the difference of two squares. So let's put the 2 there, let's copy the 2, and then this x squared minus 9y squared, because it's a difference of two squares, we can have two brackets, as we can see above, two brackets, and then we put a plus in the middle of one of them, a minus in the middle of the other, and then we do the square root of each of these two things. What's the square root of x squared? Well, it's just x. The square root cancels out the squared. And what's the square root of 9y squared? Well, this is a bit more difficult, but the square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of y squared is y, so we get 3y. So we get 3y here and 3y here. So that is the final factorisation. That's the final answer to the first one. Let's do one more example. We've got 12m squared minus 27. So 12m squared minus 27. Again, always check to see if there's a common factor to these terms first. Well, I can see both 12 and 27 are multiples of 3. So we can factorise out the 3, put an empty bracket, and then we think 3 multiplied by what is 12m squared? Well, it's 4m squared. And 3 multiplied by what is negative 27? Well, it's negative 9. 3 times minus 9 is minus 27. And then, again, we can now see that this is a difference of two squared things. 4 is a square number, 9 is a square number, m squared is something squared. That's great. So we copy the 3, then we put two brackets, a plus in the middle of one of them, a minus in the middle of the other, and then we do the square root of each term. What's the square root of the first term? 4m squared. Well, the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of m squared is m, so we get 2m and 2m. And what's the square root of the second term of 9? Well, it's 3 and 3, and so that is the final answer.